everyone, and welcome to the Canadian MPN Network's annual conference in February. My name is Patty Saluk, and I am the Vice Chair of the Canadian MPN Network, and I'm also the coordinator for the Northern Alberta MPN Group. I hope that all is well with you today, and you're ready to listen to a couple of wonderful speakers over the next couple of hours. Our February's conference theme is generally based on quality of life. And this year, our theme is empowerment through our lifestyle for both us and our care partners. What can I do, or what is it that is available to me? As a reminder, with our speakers, when you would like to ask a question, please put the question in the question and answer box that you'll see with the rest of your screen at the bottom, on the side, so forth. Also, this conference is being recorded and will appear in both English and in French on our CFPN YouTube channel sometime later in March. Make sure that your questions are a general sort of question, not about a personal issue direct towards you, because we are also different in our MPN worlds. Before we have the introduction of our first speaker, I'd like to go and introduce Doug Chisholm, who is the chair of our Canadian National Network.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon in Eastern Canada. I'm Doug Chisholm, and I welcome you as well as Patty to our conference, our online conference, Empowerment Through Lifestyle. What can I do? What a great topic. I did want to acknowledge a couple of things as we got started. One is our thanks to the conference committee. Patty Saluk, who you just met, and Jane Burns and Kristen Hummel, Steve Evans, and Joanne McKinley have done a wonderful job, as they always do, in putting together a good conference. Lots of hours of work and energy and passion, and we sure appreciate what they're doing. I also want to acknowledge a couple of our sponsors that help the Canadian MPN Network accomplish their goals on behalf of patients in Canada and their care partners. One is our long-standing partner, Novartis. And Novartis is the one that brings you ruxolitinib, usually for myelofibrosis. And they have for many years supported us financially so that we can bring this type of conference to you, as well as our regional support group meetings. So we thank them. And we have a new partner, Protagonist Therapeutics, which we're very thankful to be working with now. And they are coming into Canada with a new medication called rusfertide, and it's for PV. And it's going into clinical trial right now in Alberta and Ontario and Quebec. The trials are underway, and they're recruiting for them. So you may want to explore that for some more information. And I think we're hearing from them a little later in the meeting. So thank you to our two pharma partners for making this type of conference possible. I want to take just a quick moment and introduce our board to you. You will recognize some of the names from your area, perhaps, and not from others. But I'll start in the West. Mark Williams has returned to our board after a brief absence. He was one of our original founding members, and he's in British Columbia. You've met Patty Saluk just a moment ago. She's the group coordinator for Northern Alberta. She's a vice chair on our board. Until very recently, Jolene West in Calgary has been on our board, and we appreciate everything that she has contributed to us. Kristen Hummel is in the Barrie area, and she's a group coordinator in Barrie. She's on our board. John Clark in MPN Ontario, long-standing member of our board. I don't know what we'd do without him. Really appreciate him. New member of our board, Tara Aubrey, is our bookkeeper and hopefully our new treasurer coming up next year. And we welcome her to our board. Phil Arner has been on our board for many years as our treasurer, and he's working with Tara right now, getting her hopefully ready to take over that role. Another person who's returned to our board, we're just thrilled, is Marie Grenier Davis from MPN Ontario. And thank you for coming back and bringing your passion to our board, Marie. We appreciate it. In Quebec, Augusto Lotte is a member of our board, and he's a vice chair as well on our executive committee. MPN Ontario, Dove Leiter is on our board. Joanne McKinley is our past chair from MPN Ontario, and she does so much work behind the scenes. It's hard to know how much to thank her. Finally, our 12th board member is from the Atlantic area, and that's Steve Evans, who also does our website. And I don't want to fail to mention that Cheryl Petrick is still involved. She's a special advisor to our board, and we wouldn't be here without her. So we sure appreciate everything she's done. So that gives you a little bit of background. Welcome again, and over to you, Jane.
Thank you very much, Doug. My name is Jane Burns, and I'm one of the group coordinators for the Southern Alberta MPN Network, and I'm coming to you today from Sylvan Lake, Alberta. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce our first speaker and topic, spirituality and myeloproliferative neoplasms. The topic of spirituality and cancer is often shied away from due to its deeply personal and sometimes quite controversial nature. But today we embrace it as another way we can empower ourselves on our MPN journey. So we are welcoming today Reverend David Maginley, spiritual counselor at the QEII Health Centre in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and award-winning author of Beyond Surviving: Cancer and Your Spiritual Journey. David has also survived cancer 4 times. He is ordained with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada, specialist with the Canadian Association for Psychosocial Oncology, member of the Canadian Association for Spiritual Care, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and is featured in the documentaries Here Right Now and When You Die. Over to you, David.
Thank you so much, Jane, and what a pleasure it is to be here with you to explore a rather esoteric aspect of the cancer experience, spirituality. So I hope that what I'm going to share with you animates your imagination and broadens your perspective of what role spirituality plays not only in coping with chronic cancer, but also just in life as an aspect, a foundational aspect of your identity. So let me share some slides here. So when you're dealing with a chronic cancer, you notice how it changes the texture of life from the moment you were diagnosed. Every other moment after that feels different. It both shatters sense of safety and normal, but also awakens you to the gift of an ordinary day, of simple things. And that can be a beautiful aspect. We want to engage cancer so we not only are able to go through it, but we're able to grow through it. So I hope to explore that with you, looking at, excuse me, there we go, looking at the fundamental aspects of what can I do. So I'm doing this from the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This is Mi'kmaqi, and this is what it was like last week. People were skiing down the streets, and this artwork on this building by the university, just down the road from me, was done by a Mi'kmaq artist. It's absolutely breathtaking and delightful and fun and deeply spiritual. So I honor that I'm on that beautiful land of these people. Also, of course, it's Black History Month, so they were here 400 years before Nova Scotia, and we honor all those who have built this land. I have been in cancer care for over 25 years. Recently retired, now in private practice, but it has been an incredible honor to journey with people from diagnosis through to successful living with cancer or sometimes to the end of life. And it is an honor because I've learned from every patient what it is to live deep, to love well, and it reignites all the lessons that I learned through going through a life-threatening cancer 4 times now. I'm a very lucky man to be alive. What we notice, of course, is it causes stress. And this chart is sort of an example of it. from the moment you're developing symptoms, right? And notice how those sometimes can just feel like, I'm worn down, I have a cold, or is it the bug? Do I have COVID? And then you go and get diagnosed, there's testing, and those words are dropped, right? You have a chronic cancer. And that word cancer can cause every other word to become submerged in murky water as you reel on the inside and smile on the outside. We want to maintain our composure, right? We want to function, we want to cope. And the roller coaster of distress undulates throughout the cancer journey. Treatment is going to start. Distress is going to build. Oh my goodness, right? What is my treatment? Is it chemotherapy? Is it radiation? Is it immunotherapy? What's it going to be like? Am I going to cope? And then you've got the side effects, up and down. And the road is so long. So notice what's happening here. The fundamental aspects of your life are being threatened, and they can usually boil down to four main concerns that we have when we're dealing with a potentially life-threatening disease. The first concern is usually for our loved ones, right? We worry what it's going to be like for them. And if you identify your concern for your loved ones as a number one concern on your heart, God bless you. You are a noble heart. You have a beautiful spirit. You have a lovely relationship, and you honor the beauty of those relationships in your life. The second concern is, will I suffer? What will the road ahead look like? Well, I don't know, but it's cancer, so it can't all be smooth. There's going to be some turbulence. The third concern is unfinished business. It does make you do a life review. And that's actually not about the paperwork. It's not about the taxes. The life review, the assessment of my significance is usually, have I loved well and have I been well loved? It boils down to that. And I would assert that if God, or the grounded being of the source, the mystery, is love, as is expressed in many spiritual traditions, then love is your spiritual practice. And your spirituality will be determined much more by your love than by the content of your belief. That's worth repeating. Your spirituality is determined more by your love than by the content of your belief. Because if there's anything out there on the other side, it is beyond words. It is beyond the poverty of our understanding. And it will boil down then to the wisest thing you could ever do, which is love. Because in the end, which is coming for all of us, that's the only thing that remains. I always like to say that your relationships are the only clothing you wear to heaven. So use cancer to do your homework, to love well, to live deep. All of these worries are aspects of existential distress. Now, that's a synonym for spiritual distress. That which threatens the integrity of your identity. Nothing threatens that like getting a diagnosis that could take your life. When you live aware of your mortality, even with a chronic cancer that you can live with for 10, 15, 20, whatever number of years, even with that, it dwells within you, and you are aware that no one gets out of this road alive. Existential distress is the ego, the personal identity, pushing back against that which threatens to dissolve and disintegrate it. So is spirituality helpful? Yes, indeed. This study, I hope you can see that chart. That's an older study, but the research has been consistent. These individuals devoted themselves to a fairly intensive, long program in psychospiritual therapy. So that includes life review, learning meditation, clarifying values, having principles and guides within your life, um, processing that through multiple means, not only talking, but artistic expressions, through movement, through the body, engaging one's essence in all levels. And what they found was those who had high involvement in this course lived longer, and they had some pretty acute cancers, very dangerous, life threatening, while those who had low involvement or no therapy tended to live not as long and not as high quality of life. So, spirituality has been shown to be very good for you, without exception. This was the research done by Brene Brown. Besides being a fantastic speaker and an amazing writer, she's an excellent researcher. And she found that without exception, spirituality, which is the belief in a connection or a power greater than yourself, and the interconnections grounded in love and compassion, spirituality was a foundational component of resilience. In fact, in her research, it was the only component that marked all people, no matter what the crisis was that they were facing in life. Spirituality was the consistent factor that emerged as supporting resilience. Not planning, not exercise, no other factor in life. So, what is it then? What is your spirituality? A lot of people think it's about religion. That's an expression of spirituality. But fundamentally, I have a surprise for you. Spirituality is not what you think it is. This is the temple at Delphi in Greece. And upon that ancient temple, there was an inscription. There were three inscriptions, but the middle one said, "Know thyself." Know yourself. Know not just what you like and who you are as a personality, but know your essential essence. What are you? You are not your thoughts, because they come and go about every 3 seconds. You are not your feelings, because they come and go just as quickly. You're not your body. Well, that's been aging and changing every few minutes with digestive cells and every 10 years with deep bone cancer cell or deep bone cells. So if your body and your thoughts and your feelings are not essential, not fundamental and perennial or stable and never changing, what is it about you that never changes? That is where you will realize what you are. Your spiritual practice, besides being your exercise of love, is fundamentally for you to know yourself as you truly are. And that is going to disrupt the integrity of the ego as well. Ken Wilber says this shocking statement: authentic spirituality is revolutionary. It does not legitimate the world, it breaks it. It does not console the world, it shatters it. And it doesn't render you content or happy or fulfilled, it renders you undone. Well, it renders the ego identity undone. What am I talking about when I say ego? Here's a Jungian perspective, Carl Jung. Okay, I really like his approach. Ego is who and what I think I am, my personal identity. So my ego says that, I'm David Maginley. Um, I'm a spiritual care practitioner. Uh, I'm like chocolate, but I'm a terrible cook. Uh, all these aspects of the more surface level. The persona is what I present to the world. So you're seeing part of that now because I'm a speaker during a presentation. But there's a huge part of me which is under the surface, like an iceberg. And that is my shadow. That's material I'm trying to suppress in my subconscious. I'm not able to integrate those aspects of my experience into my ego identity. So this can include trauma, critical messages, the inner critic, needs and wants that I am suppressing, there's a lot more in the subconscious than there is in the ego. And then beyond that, there's cultural unconscious, collective unconscious, right? It's a complicated thing, but who and what am I beneath all of those layers? I'm not going to tell you too quick. Let's stay with ego a little longer, because this is fundamental to your spiritual practice. Your ego is a functional process through which consciousness has experience. So if we can imagine, and this is a rather scientific model called simulation theory, that consciousness is the fundamental nature of the universe, and matter, the world we perceive and can touch, arises out of consciousness. In other words, in the Christian text, it says God is that through which we live and move and have our being. In the Hindu teachings, the Brahma, right, is the underlying consciousness, and then all aspects of reality are emanations from that. In the Jewish and Islamic tradition, right, God, the creator of the world, everything expressed out from that. So you can think of this consciousness like a creative force. So you, as you know yourself, are the process through which that has experience. But when you attach your ego identity to your experience, it becomes dysfunctional. So for me, that's I am a chaplain. That's all I am, right? I'm attached to my job. That's my identity. When I lose that, I lose who and what I am in the world. Are you only your vocation? Are you only a parent? Are you only a human? Right? You're attaching yourself, and we all do this. You attach your identity to your experience, and that's how you define yourself. Well, when you are suffering, and then eventually when you die, all of that passes away, and you are left only with the raw, essential nature of what you are. What is that? You can't take the rest with you. No one ever saw a hearse pulling a U-Haul. So what are you fundamentally? To find out, I just encourage you to engage your mind. That's where you're going to find it, in your thoughts. Step back right now as you're listening to me. Step back from your thoughts. Watch yourself thinking. It's a little movement to the side. Watch your thoughts flow by. So your thoughts might include, what is he talking about? Your thoughts might include, I'm hungry. I wish I got a coffee and a biscuit. Don't judge them. Don't filter them. Step back and watch. Now you're going to have feelings too. Step back and watch them. This is stepping back from experience to the experiencer, to become just the observer. It's liberating because it means you don't need to believe everything you think. Thank goodness. You don't need to be controlled by everything you feel, including the difficult ones like fear or anger. You step back from all of it and just watch. Notice, as you do that, what is it like? How would you describe it? Most people describe this as a very neutral state. It doesn't need anything, doesn't want anything. It's like you become a television or a computer screen. Now, you can see me on your computer screen right now, and you see the colors, you see the form, and my movement, my expression, my words, you hear me. But what you're seeing, of course, is not the essential nature. It's not the truth. It's being projected from the screen. If you want to know the essential nature of what you're looking at, you've got to reach out and touch it. And what you're going to touch, of course, is a flat screen. So that's a good metaphor. Think of yourself as the screen upon which the movie plays. The interplay of light, the drama the characters experience, It all has a limited duration. And when we get caught up in that and identify with it, we mistake it as our true self, when our true self is this mystery, the screen. So here's the answer. What am I? I am a particular aspect of awareness. I am, period. In our spiritual practice, when we can remain grounded and centered in that, not consistently, nobody does that, but remain grounded in it, then you're able to engage the storm of life and of chronic cancer and of your family's dynamics, centered and clear. Here in Nova Scotia, we like to sail a lot. On the bottom of a sailboat underneath is a giant weight, a keel, and it's a counterweight. It keeps the sailboat from capsizing when the wind hits the sail. In fact, the keel keeps the ship stable and enables it to use the force of the wind to move forward. Without a keel deep in the water, you capsize. So, mindfulness, knowing who and what you are, independent of experience, thoughts, feelings, this is a spiritual practice that keeps you stable. It's also good for you. This is neural changes after 8 weeks of mindful meditation. I love this study because they did a brain scan of Buddhist monks who'd been meditating for decades. And they found that that yellow part of the brain that's highlighted in the picture, that was denser, that was thicker, that was wired differently. It's called the anterior cingulate cortex. So then they found that it helped to regulate more raw emotions from the amygdala, what's commonly called the reptilian part of the brain, to the neocortex. So you can think of a brain as having a brain stem that comes up. So my wrist is the brain stem. Then you've got the amygdala, the primitive part of the brain here. They call it reptilian. Then you've got another area of the brain, the mammalian, that mammals have over that. And then humans have this very well-developed neocortex that goes over that. The neocortex regulates higher functioning reasoning. So this area, anterior cingulate cortex, helps modulate and regulate the powerful or primitive emotions, fear, anxiety, panic. So then they took college-aged males, whom they considered to be the most difficult subjects to work with. They taught them meditation, and after 8 weeks, they found that their brains were also wired differently. So this is neuroplasticity, and an example how a spiritual practice results in a biological or metabolic shift. By the way, it's also found that meditation and compassionate presence also is good for your immune system, helps induce a relaxation response. It's good for your body and helps diminish the intensity of side effects from cancer treatment. Why? Well, because you're changing your relationship to your experience. The circumstances haven't changed, but how you engage them has. It's not easy. Look at all these defense mechanisms I've put up behind me. There's so many to choose from. Depersonalization is where you disconnect from your feelings and your experience. Well, that's not the spiritual practice. Rationalization. Well, I default to that one a lot. It's so convenient. But your body keeps the score. Your body is going to override your rationalization and tell you the truth. Are you listening to your body as a barometer of your well-being? How does your body speak to you? For me, when I feel stress, it kicks in my stomach first, twists. You can hear it growling and barbling from across the room. Then it hits my lungs. My breath goes shallow. I'm not breathing down from the diaphragm. Sometimes I'll get a headache, a migraine, and for me, I lose vision in the right side. My body is speaking to me, and it's saying, hey, pay attention. Something needs to be taken care of here. Your body keeps the score. Use the body more than the mind to tune into how you're really doing. You know, when people say, "How are you?" Right? They know you have cancer. "How are you?" And you say, "Oh, I'm fine." Well, fine, F-I-N-E, means flustered, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. You're trying to keep a lid on the chaos. Most of the time, we manage that quite well, especially with a chronic cancer. Why? Because you still got to function, and it isn't leaving you, hopefully, not leaving you bedbound or debilitated, but your energy goes down, personal and metabolic. Noticing your defense mechanisms for ego self-preservation, right, is all that's required. Noticing when you're rationalizing, noticing when you're projecting, noticing when you're turning to an addiction to self-soothe yourself, right? My personal one is retail therapy, Netflix, and chocolate, not necessarily in that order. Notice your maladaptive coping strategies. By noticing them and being mindful about them, they won't control you. And by noticing your defense mechanisms that try to preserve the integrity of your identity, then you can process them instead of be possessed by them. This is why Ken Wilber says your spirituality shatters illusions of safety, does not render the self content, it renders it undone. And he's referring in that to your ego's identity. So here is a high level map of the spiritual journey throughout life. And this is based on the work of a great author and hospice worker. Her name was Kathleen Dowley Singh. And she says, when we come into this world from the ground of being, from the mystery of the universe, we're an infant. We're a baby. We have no differentiation of self from other. We've come from a place where we were one with the environment. Now we're suddenly in an environment. So that causes a contraction of consciousness, pulls us away from being one with everything. Then we make a second contraction when we distinguish living from non-living things in the environment. So this is human development theory. In the first couple, maybe 3-4 years, you're going through these stages that pull you away from unity consciousness. Then you realize you're a mind and a body. You're looking out from the apparatus of the eyes. So that is another contraction separating you from your sense of self. Now there's a split. The fourth contraction, the final one, occurs throughout most of the first half, 3/4 of life, where information that cannot be integrated into your ego is put into the warehouse of the subconscious. And then that gets triggered when the crisis comes along, cancer diagnosis. And you begin to reflect on your life. And it makes your gut stir and growl, and it makes your breath shallow, and it gives you a headache. But as you integrate the homework, the unfinished business that's in your subconscious, you're doing the spiritual work of learning how to love well. For all of us, though, the end will come. And that can all usually results in a period of despair. This is where we're wrestling with mortality. And this is where Brene Brown's insight really hits home. When you have an intrinsic spiritual practice rather than an extrinsic one. So we all have a bit of both. What I mean by this is when your spirituality moves from, let's say, lifting your prayers and petitions to an external God or mystery, to now participating in the consciousness of God or being one with the mystery. That's a mystical state that actually is very common. We're allowing the ambiguity. We are allowing not knowing, not controlling, but we're going with the flow. Spirituality is very much about going with the flow, seeking at some point no longer to understand, but simply to be still, to step back from your thoughts, your feelings, your body, your story, perceptions, attachments, perceived identity, and just be. How often do you do that? What helps you? A grandchild, a sunrise, your cat, a really good cup of coffee. Start simple. Be fully present in this moment because, after all, you've been taking treatments to fight for more moments of life, but you may be avoiding the moment you're in because it's hard. That's ironic. That's typical. It's so human. In the very end of life, and I've been with hundreds of people, if not thousands, as they've died, I want to assure you, at the end of life, the vast majority of people experience an expansion of consciousness because those constrictions that happened early in life are now being broken down, I'm afraid, by suffering and increasing limitations of your body and the deconstruction of the ego's identity. This is a spiritual principle, universal in the human journey. But it means there's a breaking point after the wilderness where you feel this perplexing equanimity, a peace, a sense of connection to everything. It may only come when you are bedbound, but often it begins long before that in your dreams. In our dreams, our ego does not dominate. In the dreams, near the end of life, beautiful things happen. Over 85% of people begin having lucid dreams, nearing death awareness, where they can perceive their welcoming party or some celestial light. It's universal across all cultures, all ages, cognitive processing, more human development. It's universal. And it ends with a sense of transcendence. Isn't that a relief? Um, as a member of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, I have been examining these really deep and rather fantastic aspects of spirituality, especially as they pertain to healthcare and the end of life. And it's been amazing. I know that I'm a minister, right, of a church. Well, I'm a Lutheran pastor. I haven't had a church for a long time. Hospital has been my church. But I didn't realize that consciousness ends up being the fundamental mystery of all of life. You know, the question for me was always around what is God and is there God and all that. But the real question is independent of any religious language or terminology. It is actually, what is consciousness? What is this animating life force that I call me? It may surprise you to learn that the main scientific paradigm of reality now is not material reductionism. It is not what you see is what you get, and when you die, you're done. The dominant model is that consciousness is fundamental to reality, and that this physical universe arises from it, or is an emanation from it, just as my image now is emanating from the screen. Now, I want to end by coming back to that metaphor. You're sitting and watching a really good movie. You get caught up in it. That's the point. You don't want to watch a boring movie and not get caught up. And the purpose of this journey, I trust, is for us to experience, period. And you want to get caught up in that, so you have to forget what you are. However, if you really want to know who you are, if you want to go back to the Apollo, the temple at Delphi, the temple to the god Apollo in the Greek mythology, the question is, know yourself. That question is answered on another stone that was found on the opposite side of the entrance. It would have been in the line of sight as you stood near the columns underneath know yourself, at the back of the temple would have been the inscription of 2 letters. And those 2 letters translate as I am. What are you? Fundamentally, you are a unique expression of the consciousness from which the universe emanates. You are not your body, your story, your job. You're not any of the human dimensions. You are this unique, beautiful expression of consciousness. And yet, you're not to sit around just being. You are to experience and get caught up in this adventure. So use cancer, use your spiritual practice to engage cancer so that you grow in love, so that it deepens your humanity and makes you more curious about the mystery that we're all headed to. Now, if you want to do that with a group of people through an organized, structured way, that would be a religious system, right? And it multiplied, the effect of spiritual awareness is multiplied when you do it collectively. Why? Well, because if we all arise from the one consciousness, then the number of minds in the universe is one. And we are all expressions of that. It means that your spiritual practice is never for your benefit alone. It's never an individual enterprise. It's always collective. So when facing cancer, you can engage spirituality to support you. First, slow down. Be aware of this moment. Be fully embedded in it, if only for a little while. Second, love those who are brought across your path. Sometimes that's difficult. That's why the homework of love always begins and ends with the family. But try to love as you can and have good boundaries when it's, not going too well. Because when we don't know how to love, we end up injuring the people we love. So love wisely. So slow down, practice your love. Third, a big component of healthy spirituality is gratitude. Be grateful, generate gratitude. Drink a cup of coffee and be grateful for those who grew the beans, right? Look out and feel the rain upon your face here in Halifax, or the sun, perhaps where you are, and be grateful that you can feel that. Gratitude shifts your relationship to your own experience. It's very powerful. And finally, I'm just checking my time to make sure I don't go over. Use compassion. Now, compassion is not a kind word or a soft, gentle heart. In the Buddhist tradition, one who practices compassion is a bodhisattva. They are a warrior of compassion. Compassion is found to be a transformative force in the world. Be compassionate with those who suffer. Use your cancer to resonate more with others who have cancer. And you can draw in, but if you are afraid, draw in more fear, more distress, more worry from others. And then when you breathe out, send your compassion back to them with this quiet words, I understand. I understand. See, see what that does? That connects you with others who are going through the similar experience. And it puts your keel deep in the water by being grounded in compassion and love and solidarity with others. It expands your consciousness and breaks down the barriers of separation. Research has found that this has an effect across distance. There was one study where cancer patients were put in a Faraday chamber, so this is a lead-lined room, and their spouses, about 10 miles away, were taught a meditative practice of compassion. So it's a spiritual practice. And for 10 minutes, they sent the compassion, imagining it as a light going into their loved ones. Now, both the partners were hooked up to galvanic skin response monitors, so you tape that around your finger. And what they found was a metabolic synchronicity over distance by sending compassionate love. That's exciting. It also means there's no such thing as a private thought. That kind of makes me nervous. And it means that there's no such thing as being totally alone. We are always connected, sometimes in the most mysterious and invisible ways. May you engage the crisis you have to amplify your love, to manifest those properties, and may it cause you to shine, because in the end, that's true. That's powerful and purposeful. The world needs your light. You have a pulse. That means you have a purpose, and that purpose is to shine in your own unique way. So, what difference does spirituality make to cancer? Well, as it is with all aspects of life, it can make all the difference in the world by changing your relationship to yourself. I wish you all the best in that endeavor. Thank you for having me with you.
Thank you, David. We're going to now move into the question and answer period. So I'll just bring up the question and answer feature. The first question for you, David, is please address psychedelics. As used in therapy with professionals, have you seen clients that have had those experiences?
Thank you. That's a very current question. No, I have not worked with clients using psychedelics, but I have been talking to the researchers involved. I've been reading prolifically about it. It does hold great promise, but really needs to be done with the professional guiding, because it's not just about taking the medicine, taking the mushrooms and the psychedelics. It's about the guiding process of and really the debriefing that needs to happen afterwards. So there's a systematic protocol for this. It's a promising avenue in not only coping with cancer, but many aspects of our struggle in the human journey. And it is fundamentally, it initiates a spiritual phenomenon through expansion of consciousness. Please, if you're exploring that, connect with one of the research centers. I think there are 6 in Canada, and have a guide with you. Thank you for that question.
We also have another question about any recommendations you have for readings or apps, and another one about books or movies. So
I don't know where to stop if you want to open that kettle of fish. There's so many. Let's start with apps. Okay, so Calm, CALM, that's an app that helps you induce a relaxation response. And that's really lovely. Choice Compass, I really like this one. I've just got it myself. Now it's $15, right? But there's no subscription after that, where they usually catch you. So Choice Compass helps you listen to your body's language, not the rational mind, in making a choice. So the gut biome, right, is a form of intelligence. The body's intelligence will speak to you before the mind can rationalize it and figure it out. So it often is much more true, that sense of intuition. Movies. Well, if you're on Netflix, I really enjoyed. There's a series on near-death experiences, Surviving Death, I think it was called. I thought episode 1 was fantastic. The others were progressively stranger, but I'm used to that. Really, though, all of these, whatever sources you're engaging with, let them uh, let them support you in your private practice. In the end, turn the screen off. Don't talk to a guru or consultant. Come into the present moment and be still, and then work with what you discover there.
thank you. Thank you. Another question. Can you provide an example or two of mindfulness practices?
Certainly. So The basic one is a body scan where you sit comfortably, preferably with your feet flat on the floor, and you work with the breath. That's always the tool. And you breathe, feel it going into your nose. You feel it. Be mindful of it flowing into the body, down to the gut. Try to breathe from the belly, not from the chest. And progressively move your awareness from your feet up to your shins, up to your lap, right? Your hips. Listening, relaxing, allowing. And just continue up into the head. Be mindful of your cheeks. Be mindful of your eyes with your eyelids closed. Be mindful of your tongue, because your tongue has so many nerves. Feel your tongue. Sit on the top of the mouth, the bottom. Feel your lips. Be embodied. That's a great direct route to the present moment. And then stay with it. Do not abandon any aspect of your experience. Notice your thoughts, your feelings flying by. Watch all of it. That's a basic mindfulness practice. It's more protracted. If you want a really quick mindfulness practice, make a good cup of coffee and really enjoy it. Whatever you do it mindfully.
Thank you. Here's another question. I'm interested in starting a spiritual practice. How do I begin? What steps can I take?
Sure. Start here and now, because that's the only place it is. And I've said before, start with how you love. Learn how you love. Get to know your shadow, right? Know yourself. Know your triggers. Listen to what they're saying. So good to start with some mindfulness early in the morning first. So before you even get out of bed, you wake up. This is my favorite place, and I'm just lying there, and I give a good stretch, feel those muscles, and then relax, and then just feel the moment. Be present in the bed before you get up and mess anything up. And you're going to be engaging your spiritual practice always in your relationships, the ones you have with others and the ones you have with yourself, the ones you have with this earth, right? Don't think it's there to, your spiritual practice is not there to make you comfortable. It's there to help you be real and authentic. So to do that, you've got to engage with your shadow, and you've got to not know, not understand, and give yourself to the mystery. It's a practice of progressive surrender to the moment.
That leads into the next question, David. How can we shift from wanting a miracle to instead creating a miracle-making consciousness?
Oh, you've got some really cool people on this call. That is beautifully put. The act of wanting itself prevents manifestation, right? Because you're perceiving, wanting that you don't have it, that it's not here, when every moment is the miracle. So this again is an aspect of ego deconstruction, because notice wanting this or that is a way that the ego is going to hijack your spiritual practice. The ego is going to be very shrewd in this. It's going to hijack just about anything you engage on, especially if what you're engaging in deconstructs the ego. So this is an instinctive thing. Be aware. Again, use a discipline, a mindful stillness, right? Compassionate practice every day. Do it frequently through the day. Don't look for consistency. Don't look to get it perfect. Those are irrelevant. And actually, I would encourage that individual, all of you, if you want to check out a great teacher on this, Rupert Spira, Spira, have a look at some of his teachings on YouTube. Richard Rohr, R-O-H-R, have a look at his videos. Rupert comes from a perspective called non-duality. Father Richard Rohr, well, he's a Franciscan, I love his teachings, and those. So I'm pulling from an Eastern and a Western perspective in this. So I'll leave that with you, and then wish you the best in your enterprise.
Thank you. How can a spiritual practice not only help us cope with the challenge of illness itself, but help restore balance and harmony in the rest of our lives?
It's going to spill over anyway. If you practice, remember, if you practice spirituality so that you feel better, that's understandable in our culture, but that's not what it's there for. It's there to help you be completely real, and it's to help you taste the unity of consciousness beneath all of the seemingly separate aspects of reality and of the self. It's a lifelong enterprise. It's always fluid, it's always moving. So this is about learning how to sail, right? When the wave becomes a tsunami, hopefully you've got the skill to surf, right? But then if it overwhelms you and you're tumbling underwater, ultimately, especially at the end of life, what you discover is that you can breathe underwater. Indeed, we're designed to fly there, and it's all going to be okay.
Here's one. If we lived every day like it was our last day on earth, how would we be different?
Well, I would be a lot more crazy and not a good husband. I'd get into a lot of trouble, right? I actually have a motto: live fast, love deep, and then leave clean underwear at the end. Now, I'm referring there to don't leave a mess behind you, right? In life, try to leave the world a bit better. And maybe it's just that simple. We don't have to reach for extraordinary moments because the moment is extraordinary. But are we fully present with it? So try to be fully present, be gentle, have a sense of humor with yourself. Don't believe everything you think. Witness other people's journey and discern what's their homework and what's your homework. Healthy boundaries. We're all just walking each other home in the end.
Thank you for that. I often like to say too, we're all angels with one wing, but we need each other to fly. um, there's one more question and one more comment. So, how can we move beyond either having a very rigid concept of God or maybe a no God belief to a more open minded and broader approach to spirituality?
Let all of them be there at the same time. You're more
Mm.
complicated than one perspective. And God in the afterlife is certainly more complicated than we can even comprehend. So let God be both personal and impersonal, intimate and ultimate, right? Live with the paradox of that. Be both the screen and the movie that plays upon it. I experience God not as the old bearded white guy sitting on a cloud judging people. That's an ancient cultural model. But I imagine God, and this is going to be inadequate compared to the reality, but as this fundamental, as the highest state of consciousness from which reality emanates, which means that if God is love and consciousness, that consciousness is love, then again, my love will be my spiritual practice. Let it surprise you. Let it surprise you. Good teachers, infants, dogs and cats, animals, and those wrestling with mortality and spontaneous acts of generosity and kindness and compassion. engage them.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And just one comment from a participant that's entered something in the Q&A feature here. The fellow is saying, not a question, but I see what you practice in the photographer like Freeman Patterson. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, Freeman is a good friend of mine. He's one of Canada's most famous photographers, and we do workshops together on creativity and spirituality. So I'm a photographer, and if you go a little ad, if you go to davidmaginley.com, then under about, you'll see some of my photography. The camera looks both ways. Whatever creative act you have, cooking, photography, painting, whatever creativity you have, it's going to teach you about yourself. It's going to be autobiographical. So engaging that is a beautiful spiritual process of self-discovery. The creative act itself requires not knowing how it's going to turn out. You may have a vision, but be in the moment. I encourage you to read, oh darn, what's the book? On being, or I think maybe it's The Creative Act. It's a gray book with a black circle and a dot in the middle of the circle. That's a fantastic book to explore what you have just raised.
Thank you for that recommendation, David. So I think that sort of brings the Q&A session to a natural conclusion. On behalf of the Canadian MPN Network, I would like to express a heartfelt thanks for a very deep, thought-provoking, and enlightening presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think we can all leave this session feeling very uplifted and empowered. Thank you, David. Or should I say, love you, David. Butterfly
Big love
hug.
back.
Butterfly
Big
hug.
love, butterfly hug to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jane. What an uplifting presentation. And I love that quote at the end. I really do. So we're at the end of our first half now, and I hope you found it very inspirational. I know I have. We're going to take a short 15-minute break, and that's going to allow you to stretch and to maybe practice a little bit of mindfulness and get a snack and refill your beverages. So we will see you back in 15 minutes. Thanks. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're feeling refreshed and a little bit fuller. Before our next presenter, I'd like to talk to you about patient advocacy, and I have a few announcements about that. So, first of all, the Canadian MPN Network has a very active advocacy committee, which I am also part of. Currently, we have a campaign where we are asking people who've been on a clinical trial for the drug momelotinib and to share their story with us by describing how it benefited you and the difference that it's made in your quality of life and your care partners. If you'd like to help, you can contact us, and there's an email address, but don't worry, I'll repeat it, at advocacy@canadianmpnnetwork.ca. This web address is available on our CMPNN website and on the Facebook pages if you're a member of one of our local groups. And if you are in a local group, your coordinator most likely would have already shared the information with you or will be doing so shortly. Once you respond, we will have a brief online questionnaire, and it's not a lot of writing, lots of checkboxes, so it is short. It does allow, though, for you to go and make some opinions. And it's for you to complete, and then we'll have that. And the reason for all of this, it's so that you, the patient, will be able to be reimbursed for the cost of this newly approved treatment in Canada, because currently it's not. So your input is invaluable. not only for yourself if you're not continuing on with it, but for someone else who will be. The second announcement, oh, I said I'd repeat that, advocacy at Canadian MPN Network.ca, and it is on our website. My second announcement is about a clinical trial that's currently going on in Canada, and Doug Chisholm had alluded to this earlier. It's currently recruiting in Edmonton and looking for a startup later this spring or early summer, and it's for the new drug rusfertide. We have one of our pharma representatives coming up with us later today towards the end, who's going to speak about it more in depth. So if you have PV, and there are some guidelines with that, and you're interested in participating in a clinical trial, stay tuned. And finally, again, it's February. This February 29th is Rare Disease Day. And yes, we have a rare disease disorder, cancer. So there is being put on by CORD a rare disease webinar, and it's occurring on Thursday, February 29th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 Mountain Time. And what it's going to do is look at the diverse perspectives for everybody, how we can advocate for each of our rare diseases, the experiences that people are having, their journeys along with it, and what it's like to deal with all of this. So that is online. It is free, and you are free to join the webinar Thursday, February 29th. That's coming up very fast. And if you are in the Edmonton area and would like to attend something about Rare Disease Day in person, I have been asked to speak at CORD's Student Association at the University of Alberta and their gala night for Rare Disease Day. So that is on Thursday, February 29th from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Students' Union building in one of their ballrooms. And I've been asked to share my journey. And the reason that they are asking is because, as many of you across Canada would know, you might meet in one of Wellspring cancer care centers that are available. They don't charge us, they're free, they have wonderful activities. My group meets there on a regular basis. Some of my members have joined and are actually participating in various workshops with jewelry or with music or one of their yoga groups. Wellspring is going to be the recipient of this fundraiser at this gala, and there will be a silent auction and other activities and meals going on. So the tickets are very reasonable. If you'd like to hear about my personal journey and how Wellspring has helped us out and me out greatly, feel free to join. You'll find that on CORDSA, CORDSA website. So I think that brings us now to our next speaker. So our next speaker wasn't sure if she was going to be able to make it this time, as she's located in Germany. Yes, Germany, where it's currently 6 o'clock. It would be in the evening Saturday. So she's probably just getting home from work, and yes, she does work on weekends. She's probably just having dinner with her family. So therefore, she's pre-recorded her presentation, and it's just under 40 minutes, and we will join her for a live Q&A afterwards. I was first introduced to Dr. Suzanne Isford, our speaker, at Global Horizons in Croatia this past November. Her 20-minute presentation then was on complementary therapies for MPN patients, and it was so fascinating and interesting. I made a note that we had to have her speak to our groups. She is and has been since 2012 working with MPN patients, focused on MPN consultation with them for 1 to 3 hours a week, together with her colleagues in Aachen, founder of the German-wide MPN registry, which has and includes 5,000 patients. She's also a coordinating investigator of an investigator-initiated trial testing on ruxolitinib in the first-line PV and all-line ET patients. She's a member of the board of directors of the German study group for myeloproliferative neoplasms. She's done has a close collaboration with the German Patient Network for MPN organizations, including webinars, proofreading, and helping out with brochures and for presentations such as ours. She's currently working as an attending and medical head of the Oncological Center at Hanover Medical School since December of 2023. So I hope you very much enjoy this presentation on complementary therapies.
Dear everybody, I'm happy to be here with you today to discuss the topic of complementary therapies in MPN. My name is Suzanne Isford and I'm an attending in Hanover, Germany, and I'm happy to spend the next hour with you, first of all giving you a little overview on this topic, and then afterwards being open for your questions. So now I'm going to start my presentation. So, dear members of the network, in the next 40 minutes, I would like to give you an overview on the usage of complementary therapies in MPN. I will not only try to give you an insight on already existing data on the usage of such therapies in MPN, but I will also provide you with examples outside of MPN which show the impressive potential of such therapies. Here you can see my conflicts of interest. So this is today's agenda. I would like to start with the definition of complementary therapies and then talk a little bit about what is already known in MPN, and that's quite a bit. So, and then afterwards, I would like to hypothesize why complementary therapies actually make sense in MPN. And then we talk about the potential of such therapies from other, what we know from other diseases. And in the end, I'm going to give you a little future perspective on this. So now we're going to start. So what is actually the definition of a complementary therapy? Complementary therapies, as well as alternative medicine, are medicines and health practices that are actually not usually used by doctors to treat cancer or whatever is like the main disease. Their complementary medicines are actually used in addition to standard treatments, but alternative medicine is actually used instead of a standard treatment. So I'm going to focus on complementary therapies in my talk, and I'm not going to talk about alternative medicine. So what is actually the purpose of such therapies? Some people with cancer may actually use that in addition, as I already told you, and they are normally used in a cancer setting to reduce the side effects of cancer treatment, to actually improve physical and emotional well-being, and also to improve recovery from the cancer itself, but also from the cancer treatment that one has been suffering from. So here you can see a wide range of examples what actually complementary therapies can be. So there are things like activity therapies like yoga or Tai Chi, or also meditation or massage, but also nutrition and herbal additional intakes, but also stuff like music and art therapy and also acupuncture. So examples of complementary therapies in MPN are there. They're not widely used yet. I think they're actually widely used, but they're not that big in clinical trials, what is actually kind of a pity. But there are some examples, and I want to show you some of these works from colleagues, especially from the US, where we can see that it has already been used in MPN. So as you all know, MPN patients suffer from significant symptoms and inflammation and also reduced quality of life. Yoga improves these outcomes in other cancers. So, but it has not been demonstrated in MPN up to this point. So the purpose of this study from Jennifer Uberti, which she actually published in 2018 already, was to actually explore the efficacy of a 12-week online yoga intervention on among MPN patients, the impact on their symptom burden as well as their quality of life, but also to determine feasibility if actually this is kind of practical to do that on a continuous basis. So they recruited nationwide and randomized patients to either be in the interventional arm to receive this online yoga intervention, meaning doing 60 minutes of yoga per week, or to be on a wait list control. The patients in the control arm were actually asked to maintain normal activity, and they were just asked to participate in a list of surveys. But the weekly yoga arm, they also had blood withdrawal at certain points, and the weekly yoga was actually collected via an online web analytics tool, but also by self-report. Already mentioned, all of the participants completed questionnaires assessing certain symptoms such as depression, anxiety, fatigue, pain, sleep disturbances, but also sexual function, total symptom burden, global health, and also quality of life at several points during this intervention. So what were actually the results of this yoga intervention? So there were 62 MPN patients enrolled, and 48 were in the yoga intervention arm, or in the, it was 27 in the online yoga intervention arm, and 21 in the control group. So the yoga participation, which was assessed via the online tool, was actually 40 minutes per week. So it was a little bit less than actually anticipated. But by a self-report, it was 56 minutes, so almost 60 minutes. There were actually small and moderate effects on certain symptoms, such as sleep disturbances, pain intensity, anxiety, and a moderate effect on depression. So in about 70% of all the online yoga participants, there was a decrease in certain markers in the blood, which are actually mimicking inflammation. So this demonstrated some effects on some of the symptoms, and also a moderate effect on depression. And you have to keep in mind it was only a 12-week intervention, so a longer intervention might have bigger effects on these symptoms. And in the study shown here on the slide, did also explore the perception of MPN patients participating in such 12 weeks online yoga interventions, but it combined actually the data from 2 different studies. So the participants were asked to complete 60 minutes of online yoga, home-based, and afterwards they had to do a 15 to 20-minute phone interview. And the project had data from 39 MPN patients, and the online yoga was actually well accepted and liked among these patients. They reported physical and mental health benefits, such as improved sleep, reduced fatigue, but also reduced stress, and actually liked the convenience of being able to do yoga at home. So it was actually concluded by the author that is actually online yoga is feasible and attractive format, which might deliver a non-pharmaceutical intervention to MPN patients. But yeah, randomized controlled trials are actually needed to confirm this. So, but as you can see here on the slide, there were quite some positive effects shown on the left-hand side here. So the yoga did actually have an effect an effect on a lot of different aspects in life. So coming to the next point, or to the next complementary therapy that has actually already been tested in MPN, we're now talking about a mobile meditation app. So mindfulness meditation is a complementary therapy also shown to be beneficial for elevating a range of cancer-related symptoms. However, in-person meditation interventions are quite difficult for cancer patients to attend. So this is why a meditation via a mobile phone app represents a novel approach and might also be feasible for using long-term in patients, especially in patients with such a chronic disease as MPN. So the study aimed to report MPN patients' perception of this meditation and also explore the experiences in this context of using a mobile phone for doing this. So it was an 8-week consumer-based meditation app feasibility study, and 128 MPN patients were recruited in the US. They were enrolled in 4 different intervention groups, though there were different kind of apps. The kind of meditation that was more focusing on happier or being more calm, and so the 4 different groups were actually using different patterns of these apps, and patients were asked to perform 10 minutes per day of mobile phone-based meditation. And afterwards, they were asked to participate in a 20-minute phone interview to discuss their perception and experiences. And a total of 48 MPN patients completed these interviews. And they actually kind of liked that. There were a lot of patients that were actually hadn't done that before, and they found some beneficial effects on mental health and sleep, fatigue, and pain. So this was also kind of nice, but also needs further follow-up and further studies to actually really measure the impact of such an intervention. Integrative medicine offers unique symptom management strategies. This study describes an integrative medicine intervention utilized by MPN patients and also the association with their symptom burden. So MPN patients were surveyed online what they actually use. So here you can see different types of physical activities, but also massage, yoga, nutrition, and there were also questions on symptom burden and also quality of life, and they were actually collected and also adjusted for alcohol and tobacco use, also for body weight and what diet the patients were on, and also for MPN subtype. 858 patients participated in this analysis, so it was quite a huge study. So and there were also some effects which could be shown. So then there were a pattern of decreased levels of symptom burden, fatigue, depression. There was, for example, aerobic activity was associated with lower mean of symptom burden, but also lower quality of life and also lower depression scales. Massage was associated with higher symptom burden and higher quality of life. As you can see, so this is all only retrospective data, so it's not interventional and it's not prospective, but it gives you kind of an overview what is already there. Now we're talking about complementary nutritional supplement intake. So up to 30% of the people in the study actually reported usage of supplements, especially vitamin D. And when we come to the next study on the next slide, I will show you the effects of nutritional or complementary nutritional therapies that can actually be seen also in MPN patients. And this is quite balanced between all the MPN sub-entities. So here we have the nutrient trial, which was also performed in MPN patients. So as you know, chronic inflammation is integral to the MPN pathogenesis. So JAK inhibitors actually reduce cytokine levels, but they have also significant side effects. So nutrition might be a low-risk approach to reduce inflammation and also ameliorate symptoms in MPN. So that is why the authors performed this randomized parallel arm study to determine actually the feasibility of an education-focused Mediterranean diet intervention. So in MPN patients, the participations were actually, they were randomized. So actually a computer told them if they had to either eat or have a Mediterranean diet for the next 12 weeks, or if they had to follow the US dietary guidelines for Americans, which is not that strict. The groups received equal but separate education with registered dietitian counseling and written dietary resources. They were followed for feasibility, adherence, and symptom burden assessment. And there was also biological sample collection during that time. And now here you can see some of the results of the study. So the Mediterranean diet was as easy to follow for MPN patients as the standard USDA diet. Over 80% of the patients in the Mediterranean diet group received an adherence score of more than 8, which was not the case in the US diet score. So this you can see here, meaning that that they could really adhere to this kind of diet. An improvement in symptom burden was actually seen in both diet groups, and there were no significant changes in inflammatory cytokines. And the composition of the gut microbiome, which is actually the variety of bacteria and cells in your poo. So, but this actually remains stable, and we already know that this is might have like a big influence on a lot of side effects and also treatment, but also prospects, how you get along with your disease. So this is actually kind of usual, and this remains stable through this intervention. So the authors actually concluded that the dietitian counseling and written education can be, that MPN patients can adhere to this Mediterranean diet, and this may be further developed, because this was only, they took that from week 3 to 12, and there might be a more long-term effect if you do that for a longer time. So in the next few slides, I wanted to present you some results of the German survey study, which was performed in 4 German centers between September 2020 and October 21. So the next few slides are on the courtesy of Karl Krodl from Jena, who actually performed this survey. So 166 MPN patients participated, and I'm sorry, I translated the slides, but the pictures are still in German, so I'm gonna try to explain what is on the pictures here. So 166 patients participated. 54% were female, and the mean age was 62.7 years. And it mostly included classical MPN subtypes. And here you can see the different age groups. So the biggest part of patients was between 51 and 70 years, and there were some of them who already had MPN-specific therapy, and most of them actually took ruxolitinib or hydroxycarbamide. So almost half of the patients said that they were actually interested in complementary therapies, either already before their MPN diagnosis or also after receiving their MPN diagnosis. Only 1/3 of them was actually not interested in this kind of treatment. Almost half of the female patients actually showed interest in complementary therapies. So this is the part of the female patients, and here are the male patients, and you see that more females were interested in this kind of treatment. So this is always like the green bar showing you the interest. So here it's almost 50-50, and here it's a little bit less in male patients. And also, as you can see here, the interest in complementary and also alternative medicine increases with the duration of illness. So for the patients who said that they actually they are interested in this kind of treatment, and there was a small amount of them actually being in the first 3 years after their diagnosis, but as this goes along, so the biggest part of them already had their diagnosis more than 8 years ago. The patients were asked to list all complementary methods that they were using. So as you can see, the picture is quite heterogeneous. Some of the patients used vitamin supplies or micronutrients. Others were more into physical activities such as yoga or Qigong. But some of them actually preferred acupuncture, and few also visited a healer on a regular basis. More than half of the patients asked, more of half of them actually that we asked used complementary methods, and quite a lot of them actually used more than one of these methods. So as you can see here, this part, they used more than one method. And females, as already mentioned, used such methods more often than male patients. Having a look at the different MPN subtypes, we can say that the interest in CAM, which is shown on this side, but also the usage of such therapies was actually the highest in ET patients. And for MF patients, this was kind of low. So there were more patients with MF saying, no, I'm not using complementary therapies. But I mean, especially in ET, but also in PV, there was quite a bit of patients using such methods. I think this might also be influenced by the different prognosis with these different sub-entities, and also like the time you have to endure. And I think also that with myelofibrosis, more of the patients might actually have been treated already with MPN specific therapy. So the authors concluded that almost every second MPN patient actually uses complementary therapy methods, and that there are differences between the different sexes, but also sub-entities and age groups, and that we as physicians should actually be totally open to discuss this kind of matter, because I think the worst thing to happen could actually be that we don't know about that, and that that there are certain interactions or also negative effects, which we actually cannot really interpret because we don't know about the complementary therapies patients are using. So I think we should really be open to, also as physicians, really be open to this kind of matter, because I think it's important to actually plan or make a plan for the whole therapy together with your patients, including all of these kinds of aspects. So why does complementary therapy actually make sense in MPN? Yeah, first of all, MPN patients may suffer from a huge variety of symptoms, which may be caused by the MPN, but may also be caused or influenced by other factors. Here are just a few examples on the different symptoms. And as I just mentioned, symptoms may be influenced by a variety of other factors, not only comorbidities or other pharmaceuticals, but also physical fitness or noxious agents. So these factors may not be influenced by an MPN treatment, so complementary therapy could help conquer these aspects. Just to show you an example here on the right-hand side, you can see the influence of exercise on fatigue in MPN patients. So a symptom that is actually hard to capture with a normal MPN therapy. And symptoms do not necessarily correlate with stage or disease or prognosis. However, they can have a huge impact on daily living. So as you can see here on the slide, MPN therapies may decrease symptom burden significantly. However, they might also cause an increase in symptom burden. So as you can see here are the results of ruxolitinib from the COMFORT trials, so the trials that actually that the approval of ruxolitinib was based on, and you can see that the symptom burden is decreased with ruxolitinib, but there are also some kind of symptoms here, like fatigue, which was also reported as a side effect. So it was also a side effect in placebo. So you never know if that is just a lack of efficacy or if the therapy itself actually causes such a symptom. But I just wanted to demonstrate you that our normal MPN treatment is not actually capable of fixing all of the symptom burden. And shown here for interferon, you see that there's also an effect of fatigue, for example, on fatigue for interferon, but it's not that big. So I think this is where complementary therapies may actually step in order to improve the situation. Secondly, living with an MPN can actually be a marathon, symbolized by the survival curves here on the left-hand side, and which is actually good because it means that several patients have a long life perspective. However, living with such a chronic disease and also like in a watch and wait situation, like having the thought of not doing anything against your disease, just having the feeling of waiting for disease progression or thromboembolic events or whatever is going to happen can actually be stressful. So complementary medicine can provide you with the opportunity and also the feeling of taking your fate in your own hands again. Furthermore, chronic inflammation is a hallmark feature of MPNs. And it's now evident that inflammation is not only a symptom of MPN, but can also provoke development and also progression of the disease. So in addition to the traditional risk factors such as advanced age, there is evidence to indicate that inflammatory stimuli such as smoking, for example, can promote and also drive MPN clone expansion, so progression in of your disease. So recognition of such factors associated with a progression of the disease or a development support actually lifestyle modifications. So you should do anything you can do in order to decrease inflammation and diminish MPN progression. So this is where what you can see on the right-hand side here, lifestyle modifications like smoking abstinence, but also a special diet, or also probiotics, a dietary fiber intake, but also physical activity can actually or might actually help you in order to reduce your inflammation level. Last but not least, the landmark study that, and here is a part of the results that actually came out of this big survey, where physicians and patients were actually assessed regarding also their symptoms and their treatment, but also their treatment goals. You can see here that actually physicians tend to emphasize the importance of symptom improvement, whereas patients lay their focus on prevention of vascular events, but also healthy blood counts or delaying MPN from progression. Complementary therapies I have presented to you have the potential to support the achievement of all of these goals. So I think that is another reason why I think there's a room for such a therapy here in MPN. In the last part, I want to give you some insight on the actual potential of such therapies, what we already know from other diseases. So the ketogenic diet is an effective alternative medicine therapy used in other diseases, such as epilepsy, in order to control seizures. So this was already described in 1921 for the first time. That actually fasting appeared to have an effect on seizure control. So it involves actually to consume a calorie-restricted diet, in which so you eat more fat than carbohydrates and protein. So the ratio is like higher for the fat here. But this and recent studies have shown that especially in children, about 50% of children who will actually continue on such a diet for at least 1 year, and about 50% of them having a reduction in seizures after 12 months. So it's actually kind of a radical strategy, because everyone who has already done a ketogenic diet knows how hard this is to follow, especially for a long-term approach. So but it might help, and I mean, it's quite impressive to see that the only intervention these kids had was ketogenic diet, and it actually had a result of more than 50%. So, but yeah, as I already mentioned, it is hard to endure for a long-term perspective, but still you can see that it has a huge impact. But there's also kind of a bigger impact of other things that you can do, such as physical exercise. So here was a group from Zhang et al. And colleagues reported on the impact of physical activity on metastases. So metastases are actually responsible for 90% of the deaths in cancer patients. Most of the patients diagnosed with metastases will actually die within 5 years. So, so physical activity is actually good for health and has become an emerging adjuvant therapy for cancer survivors. So regular moderate exercise substantially lowers the incidence and recurrence of cancer. So elevates cancer-related adverse events, so side effects. Enhances the efficacy of anti-cancer treatments, and also improves the quality of life of cancer patients. So it has a huge impact on different aspects of the life of these patients. So until now, it was actually poorly understood why the immune system is actually involved in each step of tumor metastases. So substantial studies demonstrated the ability of physical activity to induce anti-tumor effects of immune cells. That's also kind of how interferon might work in MPN. So you actually strengthen your immune system in order to work against your cancer again. So, but this can also be done by physical activity. So physical activity may modulate immune cells in order to fight against your cancer again. So here you can see what is actually happening with your immune cells during exercise. So during physical activity, the numbers and anti-tumor effects of the so-called natural killer cells shown here, but also dendritic cells and also T cells and B cells, those are all kinds of white cells. So cells you need to work against infections, but also to work against a cancer. So there are a lot of activity is shown here. So there's a big effect on all of these cells. It also inhibited the formation of such platelet aggregates, and also prevented the patient of getting thrombosis, because it prevented the platelets to stick to the cells of the vessels. So you can see this is really theoretical for you, but there is a huge effect of physical activity, and I mean this is something that actually should be followed by everybody who can actually do that. So now I'm going to close and give you some of the future perspectives, which I think are important for this kind of topic. So I think we should actually try to implement new trials with focus on complementary therapies in MPN. We should actually try to find funding for these trials, because that is something that in all of these or most of these therapies, there is no pharmaceutical company behind it. So it might be actually, or it actually is hard to find funding for these trials. And I think patients and physicians should actually work together in order to find the best strategy here, because in the end, all of what I have shown to you is actually really has a huge potential, but in the end, it also has to be feasible, especially in a long-term perspective. So I think it's actually really important to include you as patients in such strategies, but because as you can see, I have told you, all of these interventions in a short-term period, they have some sort of impact, but I think it will be important to also measure the long-term effect of these interventions. And with this, I would like to conclude, and I'm happy to take questions.
Hello, everyone. We're just trying to reach Dr. Isford in Germany. Having a bit of technical issues with that. So we will just wait for a little bit that way. I'm sure that you have found lots of these different therapies, and some of you might be trying some of them. Others might be looking to see if your doctor will help you with them. But we have quite a few questions that have now been asked, and as soon as we get her online with us, we will be able to have some of those answered. So in the meantime, what I thought I would do is I had a couple of announcements at the end that I'll make now while we're waiting for her. So as we don't want to repeat the first ones, do I? I just also like to remind everyone that our national organization is supported by support groups that are regional across Canada. And these groups meet in various forms. Some of them are in person, some of them are on Zoom. We do now do hybrid meetings. The other ones, we have one in Saskatchewan that is basically a Facebook group. The other groups will meet sometimes on Facebook through various locations and do the hybrid in local areas. I do have an announcement from MPN Ontario here shortly as well. But if you're not in a regional group yet, we have them in BC, we have them in Alberta. There's 2 Saskatchewan's active on the Facebook. We have one in Manitoba. We've got a few in Ontario, Quebec, and then in our Maritimes, we have in Halifax or nearby where one is located, and helps everybody out there. So if you haven't joined one, I strongly advise that you'll feel more supported by being with one of those groups. You have information, you have colleagues that are there. An example of where one of a member that I've been communicating via email for the last 3-4 years took the brave step to come walking in at our Christmas buffet and walked out feeling so exuberated and alive and sorry that she hadn't come in previous times. So nobody judges you, and we welcome your care partners because they are extremely important in our life, and often they're feeling worse than we are. We are doing well. We're managing. We've accepted our fate, but it's our care partners and or our families that are having some difficulty. And my husband comes all the time. He does the baking for our group. And there are other people that are there that are spouses of our members, men and women that are there. So please look into that, and you'll find it on our Canadian MPN Network website, and the directors and their names, the links to the Facebook pages are all there. So MPN Ontario asked me to mention that their next upcoming meeting is going to be Saturday, March 23rd, and it will be at Wellwood Driveninsky House in Hamilton, but it will also be on Zoom. So for those of you who might want to mark that onto your calendars, and let them know, or let John know that you'll be attending. I'm sure he's already contacted with you. So I don't think we have her yet. I'm just looking and making sure. I'd also like to remind you that at the end of our conference, we do have a short survey, and we ask for your input for the conference, and it's very important. We look at these seriously. We hope that we always want to bring something that you find beneficial and that's up to date, something that can help you make your quality of life better. And if not just you can pass it on to someone else. So please do take the time for the survey. We do put in some effort into that. And a reminder that we're also looking for people with who've been on a momelotinib trial, and your input there might help us eventually get some cost savings for people in the future. And as well, when we have our pharma representative, Lindsay, on, she'll tell you more about the rusfertide and our PV patients and the trials that are going to be going on. It's quite exciting. We often don't have the trials out in the western part of Canada. We often don't get them in Canada. So knowing that they're going to start here, it would be a shame if we don't have a lot of people or enough people that they can actually go through with. So I know you can contact any one of us that you've seen today. You can look at the Facebook pages. There is information there as well. So unfortunately, we have not been able to get a hold of Dr. Isford over in Germany. It is Saturday evening. She is aware of these things. I did chat with her yesterday. So what we are going to do is take your questions and we will forward them to her. And if we can, we will post them on either our Facebook page or on the YouTube site, but they will be there within a few weeks of some sort if we're able to get a hold of her. So I'm going to move on. And I'd mentioned earlier, and so had Doug Chisholm, that we have one of our pharma reps with us, and we're trying to get a hold of her as well. And her name is Lindsay Kahn, and she is from Progressive Therapeutics. They are a group that, or a company that has recently come on to support our network here in Canada, which we are very thankful for. And Lindsay is directly related to and involved with the rusfertide clinical trial that is going to be, that is currently recruiting here in Edmonton, or and is helping or moving on in Ontario and places. So when she's available, we will make sure that we get there to her. Once again, we hope that you have enjoyed today and looking at our quality of life. I know for a lot of people, it's difficult with living with an MPN. People look at us and we think we are fine. And we heard what Reverend Maginley said about being fine. Starting with flustered, we'll do a good job to that. But it's important that we take care of ourselves and we also take care of the people around us. And that doesn't have to involve certain plans and following guidelines and working to the fact that, like going to the gym. I'm not one that will go to the gym now, but looking at something that I can do at home. So please don't think that all these are just extra things you have to do. Some of you are probably doing them every day, even if you walk your pet, you walk your dogs, if you play with your pets, that's a form of therapy. If you watch what you're eating, that's a form of therapy. So I have talked long enough for you. I'm going to introduce you to Lindsay Kahn, and she is our representative from Progressive Pharmaceuticals. Welcome, Lindsay, and thank you for being here today.
Hi, thank you, Patty, and everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm a medical science liaison for Protagonist Therapeutics, and I'm based in the Denver area. So we're working closely with your Canadian network there. Such a great group. So I wanted to talk, I'm speaking on behalf of my company, Protagonist. We're a small biopharmaceutical company located in the South San Francisco Bay Area. We're a growing biotech company with about 120 employees as of right now. Our drug discovery platform is based on a proprietary peptide technology, and our lead investigational candidate is called rusfertide, also known as PTG-300. It is a synthetic mimetic of the naturally occurring hormone called hepcidin. Hepcidin regulates iron metabolism and controls the absorption, storage, and distribution of iron in the body. So we're excited to announce that our phase 2 REVIVE study, which compared rusfertide to placebo in 70 polycythemia vera patients, yielded positive results and was recently published in the New England Journal of Medicine. In fact, it came out just this past week, so we're all pretty happy about that. We're currently enrolling patients in our phase 3 VERIFY study, and this is for patients with PV, of course. This is a global study, and it's going to enroll 250 patients. This VERIFY study allows both high-risk and low-risk PV patients to enroll, and is considered an add-on trial. Rusfertide, meaning that rusfertide is added on to your normal standard of care. It's randomized placebo-controlled trial, and it's evaluating the efficacy and safety of a once-weekly subcutaneously self-administered dose of rusfertide in PV patients. So if you're a PV patient, we do have a patient website where you can go and answer a few questions. And what that'll do is direct you to a clinical trial site, which can help determine if you're an appropriate candidate for the study. It'll also show you the cancer centers that have the study open near you within 150 miles. The website is www.polycythemiavera-clinicaltrial.com. Before you ask, we have 4 clinical trial sites open in Canada. There's 2 of them in Toronto, that's at Sunnybrook and Princess Margaret. There's 1 in Montreal at Jewish General, and there's also 1 in Edmonton at the University of Alberta. So that's our trial in a nutshell. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and Protagonists, we look forward to our continued partnership with the Canadian MPN Network. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Hi, Lindsay. It's Patty. if you would just repeat maybe the email address again or the website.
Sure. So it's www.polycythemia-vera-clinical trial, all one word, clinicaltrial.com.
Okay, and for those of you who are listening, we'll make sure that our group leaders already know that. As I said earlier too, I believe that information should have been passed on, but we'll have it posted on our website as well. So I don't know. I'm just going to check the Q&A here, see if there's anybody.
Yes, there's a question there. Does somebody need to be a patient at a clinical trial site to participate? The answer to that is no, you don't. You can just go to that site, and you can find on the website also the name of the physician who is the principal investigator. Just call. You can call the site and ask about that. I think those contact numbers are on there. So no, you don't have to be a patient there. And you guys have it great in Canada, unlike the U.S., where all your charts and everything are connected. You can go to any place within, Health Canada there, which is nice. We have bigger issues with that here in the U.S., obviously.
Well, it's been a work in progress in various provinces, and some are better than others. But it's quite, it is easier for doctors to get a hold of things and not have to worry about snail mail or fax machines or confidentiality on emails, because it's all connected and they can just look it up. So,
yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't think I see any other questions that are there. So thank you. I appreciate that so much. And I know that if anybody has any other questions that come in later, that I'll make sure that I forward them to you or to Doug, because I know that you meet regularly. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Keep us posted with how it's going with the trial.
We will. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this brings me now, because I don't see that we managed to get a hold of Dr. Isford. I've mentioned to you about our survey at the end, which will be coming up shortly. I've mentioned to you that we have our Facebook groups. So in conclusion, I hope that you have enjoyed our speakers today and found them very informative. I'd like to thank all the members of our conference committee for putting their time in and their hard work pulling this conference all together. And if you out there in audience land, I'll call it, are interested in becoming more active in the Canadian MPN Network, being part of a committee, being part of our board, we're always looking for members. So you can contact any of us through our website addresses, on our Facebook pages, so forth. And it doesn't take a lot. We have a meeting once, a little bit here and there, but we're always looking for new ideas and inputs and insights. So your input would be welcome. So our survey is going to show up right shortly. Thank you very much for attending our 10th annual MPN conference. Take care, everyone. Have a great Saturday. Be sure to fill out the survey.